No one expected a human to survive, but the princess believed. A world no human had ever survived on, at least according to the galactic records. Every species in the Council's registry considered humans fragile, incapable of withstanding the harshness of worlds like this. But Elias had no choice. The mission was critical: map Zithuria's surface for potential habitation and report back. The first tremor of the planet shook the ship as it pierced the thick cloud layers. He struggled to keep it steady, beads of sweat forming on his brow. Below, jagged mountains broke the dense forests into chaotic patterns. Rivers of blue liquid snaked through the valleys, and enormous tree-like structures reached high into the sky, their tops lost in a layer of swirling mist. It was beautiful, almost mesmerizing, but deadly. He knew it. A sudden jolt threw him forward. The controls screamed under his hands, metal bending and twisting. The ship's hull rattled like it wanted to be torn apart. He pushed all his strength into stabilizing it, but a sharp spike of rock caught the landing skid, sending the ship spinning. Then, with a final shudder and a violent crash, it broke through the forest canopy and slammed onto the ground. Trees snapped around him, splintering under the force. Dust and smoke filled the cabin. When the world stopped moving, Elias lay slumped over the control panel, chest heaving, ears ringing. Slowly, he opened his eyes. The cockpit was a mess, wires hanging, panels flickering, but the frame had held. Somehow he had survived. Against all odds, he had survived. Outside, the jungle loomed. Strange, glowing plants pulsed with light, and enormous leaves rustled in the wind. The air was thick and humid, carrying a scent that was sweet and sharp at the same time. The forest seemed alive, watching him, whispering in a language he could not understand. This was Zithuria, a planet that had claimed countless lives, yet it had not yet claimed him. Elias unstrapped himself, his limbs sore, muscles trembling. He pushed the hatch open and stepped into the alien world. Every step was careful, measured. Rocks crunched under his boots, but the forest seemed to swallow the sound. Every shadow could hide danger. Every rustle could signal a predator. He had been trained for survival, yes, but training was never enough for a world like this. He set to work on the wreckage, salvaging what he could. The control panel was partially fried, but he found a portable beacon and a survival kit. A small smile crossed his face. Human ingenuity, even in the worst conditions, could be surprisingly effective. He grabbed his backpack, checked the supplies, and looked around. The dense forest stretched endlessly, and the sky was hidden behind a curtain of mist and strange, floating spores. He had no map. He had no support, but he had determination. What Elias did not know was that he was being watched. High above, in a hidden alcove carved into the rocks, a pair of sharp eyes observed his every move. Princess Lyra, exiled from her royal house, had taken refuge in the depths of Zithuria's wild forests. She had seen countless creatures and beings perish here, yet there was something in Elias' movements that made her pause. He did not scream or panic. He did not flinch. He adapted. His small, cautious steps, his careful observation of the terrain, the way he used fallen branches to test for danger, these were traits she recognized. He might live when no other human ever could. Elias began exploring the immediate area around the crash. He made small markers, noting where the land was unstable. The trees were massive, their roots twisting over the rocky ground. Vines hung like ropes, and some pulsed with bioluminescent light. He touched one, careful, and it reacted, shrinking slightly before returning to its original size. The plants were alive in ways humans did not fully understand. Zithuria was not just dangerous because of predators or terrain. The planet itself was alive, aware. Night began to fall, and with it came the strange sounds of Zithuria's nocturnal life. High-pitched shrieks echoed in the distance. Large, shadowy figures moved through the trees, watching, waiting. Elias set up a small camp near a stream, using the fallen branches to create a makeshift perimeter. He checked the beacon, signal weak but still functioning. For tonight, at least, he was safe. As he prepared a simple meal from his rations, he thought of the reports he had read before arriving. The council had laughed at the thought of a human surviving here. Fragile, weak, unfit for alien worlds, the report said. Elias had laughed too, quietly to himself, because he knew humans could endure far more than anyone believed. Humans could adapt, improvise, survive. That was their strength. Meanwhile, Lyra continued to watch. She had seen warriors, explorers, even trained hunters come to Zithuria, and all had failed. She wondered silently what made Elias different. Perhaps it was courage. Perhaps it was stubbornness. Perhaps it was something only humans possessed, a spark of hope, even when everything around them was deadly and unforgiving. Over the next few days, Elias moved carefully through the forest, learning its rhythms. He observed the creatures, some small and harmless, some large and dangerous. He learned which plants could provide nourishment and which could burn the skin with a single touch. He built small traps to catch edible insects, and he discovered how to purify the strange water from the streams. Every success was small, but it strengthened him. One morning, he encountered a massive predator, something unlike any animal on Earth. Its skin shimmered in shades of green and blue, and its multiple eyes reflected intelligence, curiosity, and hunger. Elias froze. The creature approached, sniffing the air, but he did not run. Instead, he carefully backed away, making himself seem smaller. Slowly, the creature studied him, then turned and disappeared into the forest. Elias exhaled a long, shaky breath. He survived another encounter. He had learned again that survival was not always about strength. It was about understanding, patience, and adaptation. Lyra moved closer. She left small caches of water and strange fruits near his path, ensuring he had just enough to survive. She remained hidden, careful not to reveal herself too soon. She watched as he examined her gifts with curiosity, his mind racing with questions, but he never suspected an observer. She smiled faintly, knowing he had the mind of a survivor. Perhaps humanity was not as weak as her people believed. Perhaps they could endure where others could not. As the week passed, Elias discovered more about Zithuria's strange energies. Some stones emitted faint warmth, pulsing in rhythm with his own heartbeat. He experimented cautiously, building small circuits with his remaining tools. Sparks danced, but nothing exploded. Slowly, he began to understand that the planet itself was not only alive but reactive. If he could learn its patterns, he could survive. If he could adapt, he could thrive. One evening, as he sat near a stream, cleaning a wound from a minor fall, he felt a presence. Not threatening, not aggressive, just aware. He looked around but saw nothing. The forest was still, almost reverent. Elias shivered, but not from fear. He felt a strange sense of being watched, guided even. He could not see her, but he knew someone, or something, was paying attention. Lyra, from her hidden vantage, allowed herself a small smile. She had decided she would not intervene directly unless he faced imminent danger. Let him learn, let him adapt. Let him prove that the human spirit was more than rumor or stereotype. Let him survive. Days turned into nights, and nights into more days. Elias grew stronger, smarter, more attuned to the alien rhythms of Zithuria. Every challenge was met with thought, patience, and creativity. Every obstacle became a lesson. He found shelter in the hollow of a massive tree, used vines to secure traps, and learned to navigate by the movement of the glowing plants. Each night he slept lightly, listening to the whispers of the forest and learning its secrets. And through it all, Lyra watched. Her belief in humanity's potential grew with each passing day. She had been wrong to underestimate humans in the past. Perhaps she had judged too quickly, relying on centuries of prejudice. Elias was changing that belief. He was a living testament that humans could survive, and maybe even thrive, in ways others thought impossible. One morning, after a heavy storm had passed, Elias stood on a cliff overlooking a valley that shimmered with the light of the bioluminescent plants. He marveled at the beauty, but also at the danger it represented. The wind carried the scent of rain and wet earth, and he knew that the planet could crush him at any moment. And yet he did not feel fear. He felt determination. He had survived the impossible so far. He would continue to survive. Lyra, hidden in the treetops, nodded silently. He had passed the first test, not by strength, not by luck, but by courage, ingenuity, and an unyielding will to live. The council had been wrong. Humans were not weak. Humans could endure, adapt, and overcome. And she, the princess of Zithuria, would ensure that everyone knew it if he survived long enough to prove it. The forest around him pulsed and breathed, alive with danger and wonder. Elias took a deep breath and stepped forward, ready to face whatever came next. The human spirit was alive, fierce, and unbroken. And Zithuria, for all its menace, had yet to defeat him. Elias woke to a chorus of alien sounds, the strange calls of creatures echoing through the dense forest. His muscles ached from the previous day's trek, but he had learned to move with caution. Each step, each choice was deliberate. Zithuria was unforgiving, but he was slowly learning its patterns. He had discovered which plants gave energy, which ones reacted violently when touched, and how to navigate the thick vines and roots that threatened to trip him at every turn. As he packed his small shelter for the day, he noticed unusual tracks in the mud near the stream. They were larger than any predator he had encountered so far, and unlike anything recorded in his briefings. Curiosity stirred, but caution kept him alert. He followed the tracks cautiously, moving through the undergrowth. Every branch snapped underfoot made him flinch, but he pressed on, understanding that survival required both patience and awareness. Lyra, hidden high in the trees, followed silently. She had begun to admire Elias more with every passing day. Not because he was strong, not because he was reckless, but because he was human. The way he observed, adapted, and calculated reminded her of a rare quality she had seen in very few beings, resilience born not of instinct alone, but of thought. He did not panic, did not blindly attack danger. He analyzed, experimented, and adapted. The tracks led to a clearing where the air shimmered with a strange energy. Stones along the ground pulsed faintly, casting soft blue light onto the leaves. Elias knelt to examine them. He carefully touched one, and it responded, vibrating slightly as though alive. A spark of insight hit him. This was not just a forest. This was a living, reactive system, a network of energy that connected the plants, stones, and possibly even the creatures. He tested a small stick against one of the stones, and the energy surged through it, creating a faint electric current. His eyes widened with the realization he could use this energy to aid his survival if he understood it better. He took careful notes in his small data pad, sketching the patterns and pulsing rhythms. For Elias, every discovery was a step toward survival. But survival on Zithuria was never just about knowledge. Danger was constant. As he studied the stones, he heard a rustle behind him. He froze, listening. The wind carried an unusual scent, metallic and sharp. From the underbrush emerged a creature with 6 legs, sleek and muscular, its skin shimmering with a rainbow of colors that made it almost invisible against the foliage. Its multiple eyes locked on Elias, curiosity and hunger evident in its stance. Elias did not panic. Instead, he used what he had learned. He moved slowly, maintaining eye contact, and reached into his pack to grab a reflective shard from the broken ship. Holding it up, he angled the light toward the creature. The reflection startled it, and it paused, giving him enough time to retreat slowly to higher ground. The creature followed cautiously, but eventually lost interest and disappeared into the forest. Elias exhaled, heart pounding, and made a silent note. Understanding the creatures was as important as understanding the terrain. High above, Lyra allowed herself a quiet smile. She had wondered if he could survive a direct encounter with Zithuria's predators, and he had. She had left him the tools, yes, but it was his mind that made the difference. Humanity had always underestimated itself. Elias was proof that humans were not fragile. Days passed with Elias exploring further. He discovered a small river that glowed faintly in the dark, fed by underground springs rich in the same energy as the stones. Using scraps from the ship, he fashioned a simple raft, testing the waters cautiously. The river was not only a source of water, but also a potential path for exploration. He floated carefully, avoiding sharp rocks and the occasional underwater predator, marveling at the alien beauty around him. One evening, as he camped by the riverbank, Elias noticed strange symbols etched into the stones around him. They pulsed faintly with the energy, forming patterns that were clearly not natural. He traced them with his fingers, realizing they might be a form of communication or a map left by an ancient Zithurian civilization. The realization filled him with awe. Survival was one thing, but discovery was another. He felt the thrill of understanding a world that no human had ever touched before. Lyra observed him studying the symbols, and for the first time she considered revealing herself. But she hesitated. Elias had learned so much on his own. Revealing herself too soon might disrupt the balance. He needed to rely on his instincts, his ingenuity. She wanted him to prove that humans could thrive even in the most alien conditions, unaided by outside intervention. The forest, however, was never idle. One morning, Elias heard the cracking of branches overhead. He looked up and saw a massive creature descending from the canopy, a predator with wings like translucent sails, claws sharp as blades. It had spotted him. Without time to think, Elias dove behind a large boulder, rolling to safety as the creature landed with a thunderous crash. His heart raced, but he forced himself to remain calm. He remembered the reflective shard. Pulling it from his pack, he angled the sunlight to blind the creature's multiple eyes. It recoiled, shrieking, giving Elias enough time to climb a nearby tree. From this vantage point, he observed its patterns, how it moved, how it hunted. He realized that even Zithuria's deadliest predators had habits, weaknesses that could be studied and used to his advantage. Lyra's heart swelled with admiration. He was doing more than surviving. He was learning, evolving, adapting. She had believed in him from the start, but each action he took reaffirmed her faith. Humans were underestimated not because they were weak, but because they were different. They could think, adapt, and change in ways that even the most advanced alien species sometimes could not. As the days grew into weeks, Elias constructed a small network of safe zones throughout the forest, hidden shelters, traps for food, and markers to navigate back to safety. He experimented with the pulsing stones, finding ways to store energy for later use. He learned to read the movements of predators and to predict the rhythms of the forest. Each success was a small victory, reinforcing his confidence and his belief that humans could endure anything. One morning, while exploring deeper into the forest, Elias stumbled upon a hidden valley filled with ruins. The structures were ancient, overgrown with vines, yet the energy from the stones pulsed more strongly here. He approached cautiously, scanning the area for danger. The ruins were silent, but they seemed alive in a way that fascinated him. He noticed more symbols etched into the walls, more patterns that hinted at knowledge long forgotten. As he documented the site, he heard a voice, a soft, clear voice that called his name. Elias froze. "Who's there?" he shouted, scanning the ruins. No answer, just the wind and the faint hum of the energy stones. Yet he felt a presence guiding him. It was not threatening, it was encouraging. High above, hidden in the trees, Lyra watched. She had decided it was time to interact subtly. She left a small artifact near the ruins, a simple tool that could help him navigate the energy patterns. She did not speak, did not reveal herself. She watched as Elias discovered it, studying it with the same curiosity and intelligence that had carried him through the forest so far. The bond between them, silent and unseen, began to grow. Elias did not yet know she existed, but her belief in him gave him subtle advantages. She guided but never interfered. He was learning not just to survive, but to thrive, to understand Zithuria in ways that no other human or alien had ever done. One evening, as the twin moons rose over the forest, Elias sat near a glowing stream, reflecting on how far he had come. He had survived storms, predators, and alien terrain. He had learned the patterns of energy, discovered hidden ruins, and navigated dangers that should have ended him. Yet here he was, alive, stronger, smarter, and more capable than he had ever imagined. Lyra, hidden in the shadows, watched silently. Elias was more than a survivor. He was proof that humanity could endure, adapt, and overcome. She had believed it from the start, but he was exceeding even her expectations. Humans were underestimated, yes, but they were clever, resilient, and full of surprises. As Elias drifted to sleep under the glowing canopy, unaware of the princess watching over him, the forest seemed to hum in approval. He had passed the second test, not by luck, not by force, but by intelligence, patience, and courage. The journey ahead would be harder, she knew. But if he continued like this, he could change not just Zithuria's perception of humans, but the entire galaxy. Elias' eyes closed, but his mind remained alert. He had survived the impossible so far, and he knew the future held even greater challenges. Yet for the first time in his life, he felt a quiet confidence. Humanity was capable. Humans could endure. Humans could thrive. And he would prove it one step at a time in a world that no human had ever conquered. Elias woke to the soft hum of Zithuria's energy stones. The glow from the twin moons filtered through the canopy, casting strange shadows across the forest floor. He felt stronger now, more confident in his ability to navigate the alien terrain. The crashes and roars of the forest's predators had become part of his rhythm. He knew when to hide, when to observe, and when to act. Survival had taught him patience and calculation, and he trusted his instincts more than ever. That morning, he set out toward the hidden valley he had discovered days before. The ruins there had fascinated him, but he sensed that exploring deeper would reveal even more about Zithuria's secrets. Every step through the thick undergrowth was careful, measured. He moved silently, listening to the forest, noting the patterns of the creatures around him. Every sound, every rustle told a story. As he reached the outskirts of the valley, he felt it before he saw it, a presence cautious but deliberate. He froze, scanning the area. Two figures emerged from the shadows of the trees. Elias instinctively reached for a makeshift weapon, a sharpened piece of metal salvaged from the wreckage of his ship. His eyes widened when he realized the figures were humanoid, tall and slender, with flowing garments that shimmered in the moonlight. "Who are you?" Elias called, voice steady despite the pounding of his heart. The taller figure stepped forward, raising hands in peace. "Do not fear," the voice said. It was calm, melodic, unlike any language he had heard, yet somehow he understood. Elias frowned. "I don't understand," the figure smiled faintly. "You are human, few survive here, you are different." Elias lowered his weapon slightly. "Different how?" "You adapt," the figure said. "You observe, you learn, you endure, that is why you live." Elias took a cautious step forward, studying them. Their eyes were curious, intelligent, and alert. They were Zithurians, clearly, but not the creatures he had feared before. They moved with grace and purpose, not the mindless violence he had learned to avoid in the forest. The second figure emerged from the shadows, shorter, with sharp, intelligent eyes. Elias felt a strange familiarity, though he could not place it. I survive because I have to," he said simply. "I have no other choice." The taller Zithurian nodded. "Survival alone does not explain your success. You use your mind, you see patterns, you are clever. That is unusual for humans." Elias swallowed. "Clever is different from strong," he said. "I know I'm weak compared to you, but I can adapt." The shorter figure stepped closer, eyes locking on Elias. "Perhaps that is why the princess believes in you?" Elias froze. "Princess?" he asked, confusion rising. From a hidden ledge above, Lyra stepped into the moonlight. Her flowing robes caught the glow of the energy stones. Her hair fell over her shoulders, and her sharp eyes studied him closely. "I am the princess," she said simply, "and I have watched you survive when none believed you could. That is why I believe in you." Elias stared, speechless for a moment. He had suspected someone was watching, guiding him in subtle ways, but he had never imagined it would be a princess. "Why?" he asked finally. "Why help me?" Lyra's eyes softened. "Because I see the truth about your kind. Humans are underestimated, weakness is assumed. But you prove them wrong, you endure, adapt, and think. You have a spark that others do not." Elias felt a strange warmth in his chest, a mixture of relief and pride. "Then what now?" he asked cautiously. "Now," Lyra said, "you learn more, you survive further. And eventually you will face the council itself. They see humans as weak. They will try to stop you, but you can teach them otherwise." Elias nodded, determination filling him. He had survived storms, predators, and alien terrain. Now, guided by Lyra and his own ingenuity, he would face challenges unlike any he had imagined. Over the next days, Lyra began teaching him more about Zithuria's hidden energies. She showed him how to read the pulse of the stones, how to sense the movements of the creatures before they appeared, and how to use the environment itself as protection. Elias absorbed every lesson, experimenting with his own methods, combining human intuition with her knowledge. He learned to trap small creatures for food using minimal energy, craft temporary shelters that blended seamlessly with the environment, and harness the energy stones to power simple devices. With each day, he grew stronger, smarter, more capable. The forest was no longer just a danger. It became a teacher, a partner in his survival. One afternoon, as they moved through a narrow canyon, Elias spotted movement above. A patrol of alien warriors, tall, armored figures with advanced weapons, scanned the valley below. The council had noticed his progress. They assumed no human could survive long in this environment, but Elias had not just survived, he had thrived. And that made him a threat. Lyra motioned for him to stay low. She whispered instructions on how to use the terrain to avoid detection. Elias followed carefully, crouching behind rocks and using shadows to move silently. The patrol passed without noticing them, but the encounter was a warning. The council would not allow a human to prove them wrong without interference. That night by the glowing river, Elias and Lyra discussed their plan. "They will come for you," she said. "The council cannot allow a human to continue unchecked. You are a challenge to their assumptions, and they fear challenges." Elias nodded. "Then we prepare. I survive by thinking, not by fighting blindly. We can use their assumptions against them." Lyra's eyes shone with admiration. Exactly, they underestimate humans. That is your advantage. You turn their certainty into weakness. And you, she hesitated briefly, you have inspired me as well. I see now that humans can endure when others cannot. Their bond grew stronger with each passing day. Elias trusted her guidance, but he never relied on it blindly. He experimented, made decisions, learned from mistakes, and adapted. And Lyra, who had watched so many perish in Zithuria's forests, marveled at his ability to navigate danger without panic, without rashness. Several days later, they encountered their first direct threat from the Council's forces. A squad of armored Zithurian warriors moved through the forest, weapons scanning for the human intruder. Elias and Lyra observed them from the treetops. The warriors moved with precision, confident in their superiority. But Elias saw patterns in their movement, rhythms in their scanning, weaknesses in their formation. He whispered instructions to Lyra, and together they set a trap. Using the environment, energy stones, and simple tools from the crash site, they created diversions, false paths, and obstacles that confused the patrol. One by one, the warriors stumbled into pitfalls, became entangled in vines, or were forced to retreat when energy bursts from the stones startled them. Elias felt a rush of triumph, but he remained cautious. Each victory was temporary. The council would return, stronger, smarter. But every success reinforced his belief. Humans could endure, adapt, and overcome even when facing superior forces. Lyra finally revealed her presence to him fully that night, emerging from the shadows as they watched the disabled patrol retreat. Elias turned, startled at first, then smiled. "You've been helping me all along," he said. Lyra nodded. "I have, yes, but not by interfering directly. I wanted to see if you could survive on your own, and you have." Elias looked out at the forest, the glowing river, and the ruins beyond. "Then we continue," he said. "We face whatever comes next together." Lyra placed a hand on his shoulder, a gesture of trust and partnership. "Together," she agreed. Over the next few weeks, Elias and Lyra explored deeper into Zithuria. They discovered hidden ruins, strange energy nodes, and creatures that defied description. Each discovery was a challenge, a puzzle to solve. And each solution relied on human ingenuity, combined with Lyra's knowledge. They learned to harness the energy of the stones, navigate deadly terrain, and anticipate the movements of predators and patrols alike. Elias began to understand Zithuria in ways no human had ever imagined. He could sense the flow of energy in the rivers, the pulse in the stones, and the rhythm of the forest itself. He learned to communicate silently with Lyra, using gestures, signals, and intuition. Together, they were more than a human and a princess. They were a team capable of surviving and thriving in a world designed to destroy intruders. One morning, as the sun filtered through the canopy, Elias stood at the edge of a cliff overlooking the hidden valley. The wind carried the scent of wet earth and growing plants. He felt alive in a way he had never felt before. The forest had tested him, pushed him to his limits, and he had prevailed. The council had underestimated him, just as Lyra had predicted, and he knew their next encounter would be even more challenging. Lyra joined him silently, placing a reassuring hand on his shoulder. "You have proven yourself," she said softly. "Not just to me, but to yourself. Humans are capable of more than the council believes, and soon the world will see it too." Elias nodded, determination blazing in his eyes. He had survived storms, predators, and alien warriors. He had learned the secrets of Zithuria, adapted to its dangers, and formed a bond with someone who believed in him. The next step was clear. The council would come for him again, but this time he would not just survive. He would show them what humanity was truly capable of. As the wind rustled through the trees and the energy stones pulsed faintly beneath their feet, Elias and Lyra prepared for the challenges ahead. The human spirit was alive, clever, and unyielding. And Zithuria, for all its dangers, would witness the full measure of that spirit. The forest was unusually still that morning. The mist hung low, curling around the trees and wrapping the ruins in a ghostly embrace. Elias and Lyra moved cautiously through the undergrowth, the lessons of the past weeks guiding their every step. Elias' mind was alert, calculating, predicting. Every shadow, every rustle, every flicker of light was part of a pattern he had learned to read. The council would not allow him to survive unchecked. They would come, and he had to be ready. Lyra stayed close, her eyes scanning the terrain for signs of danger. She had trained all her life in the ways of Zithuria, but now she saw strength in Elias she had rarely witnessed in her own people. Humans were underestimated, and for good reason. They were unpredictable, flexible, and clever in ways others often overlooked. Elias embodied all of that, and together they formed a partnership the council could not anticipate. As they approached the edge of the hidden valley, the earth beneath their feet began to hum faintly. The energy stones embedded in the rocks pulsed stronger here, resonating with the forest itself. Elias knelt, examining the stones carefully. He realized they could amplify energy in predictable ways if arranged correctly. He began to sketch a simple diagram in the dirt, planning how to use this energy to their advantage if the council attacked. Hours passed in careful preparation. They cleared a small area among the ruins, setting traps and creating false paths that could confuse intruders. Elias worked tirelessly, his human ingenuity turning natural resources into clever defenses. Lyra observed, occasionally offering subtle guidance, but she let him lead. He was proving that humans could survive and adapt even under the most impossible conditions. Late in the afternoon, the first signs of the council's forces appeared. Distant silhouettes moved through the forest, tall armored figures scanning for the intruder. They were confident, their technology advanced, their numbers superior. But Elias had studied them. He knew their formation, their patterns, their assumptions. They assumed humans were weak and predictable. He would prove them wrong. Lyra pointed to a small ledge above their position. "We can use the high ground," she whispered. "They will not expect it." Elias nodded. "Good. Let's draw them in." He had learned over the past weeks that direct confrontation was often less effective than clever strategy. Humans thrived when they used intelligence, creativity, and observation to turn a disadvantage into an advantage. This would be no exception. The council's warriors entered the valley, their boots crunching against the alien foliage. Elias and Lyra waited silently, hidden among the ruins. Elias signaled with a small hand gesture, and Lyra activated a mechanism she had been studying, a series of energy stones that emitted bursts of light and vibration. The council warriors paused, confused by the sudden pulses. Elias used the distraction to position himself higher among the ruins. From this vantage point, he could see the entire valley, the movements of the warriors, and the best routes for escape or counteraction. He set small traps along the paths he had studied carefully. Fallen trees, carefully balanced rocks, and pulsing energy nodes created obstacles that slowed the council's advance and forced them into predictable patterns. The warriors were skilled, but Elias was smarter. Using a combination of timing, observation, and human ingenuity, he guided them toward the traps without ever confronting them directly. One by one, the obstacles neutralized their formation. Rocks tumbled, vines ensnared their legs, and the pulsing energy stones emitted bursts that forced them to retreat temporarily. Elias watched carefully, learning from each reaction, predicting the next. Lyra finally stepped out of the shadows. "You have proven yourself," she said firmly. "Now show them what humans are truly capable of." Elias smiled faintly. "I intend to." He adjusted a few traps, using the patterns of the energy stones to create illusions of movement. The council warriors, confident in their superiority, were drawn into the maze of the valley, unaware of how cleverly they were being guided. Hours passed in careful execution. The council grew frustrated as their formations were disrupted repeatedly. Elias' traps were not lethal. They were clever, designed to disorient, confuse, and expose weaknesses. He studied the warriors' responses, adjusting his strategies in real time. Every move relied on observation, calculation, and adaptation. Finally, as dusk approached, the council realized they had underestimated him. They regrouped, trying to find the human who had outsmarted them repeatedly. Elias and Lyra waited silently, letting the warriors enter the final trap. Rocks shifted, energy pulses surged, and the path narrowed, funneling the warriors into a single corridor where their formation broke entirely. They were forced to retreat or risk being trapped. Elias descended from the ruins, stepping into view. His posture was calm, confident, and unwavering. The council's warriors hesitated, stunned by the human who had outmaneuvered them. He did not raise a weapon. He had no need to. Intelligence, strategy, and courage were more powerful than brute force. Lyra joined him, standing proudly at his side. "This is your strength," she said to the council's forces. "Humans are not weak. They endure, adapt, and overcome. You have underestimated them." A murmur spread among the council. The elders who had declared humans weak could not believe what they were witnessing. One by one, they lowered their weapons, realizing that brute strength alone would not defeat a being capable of such cleverness and resilience. Elias spoke calmly, his voice carrying across the valley. I am human. I survived your world when you thought it impossible. I adapted, I observed, I learned. That is what humans do. We endure, we create. We overcome challenges that others believe impossible. Underestimate us at your own peril. The council elders exchanged glances. The bias they had held for centuries was challenged by a single human who had not only survived but thrived. The warriors stepped back, acknowledging the truth in his words. The message was clear. Humanity could not be dismissed. Lyra placed a hand on Elia's shoulder, her eyes shining with pride. You have done more than survive, she said softly. You have proven that humans can inspire change, that we can teach others to see beyond fear and assumption. Elias allowed himself a small smile. For weeks, he had adapted, learned, and endured. Now the council and their warriors had witnessed human ingenuity firsthand. It was more than survival. It was triumph. In the following days, Elias and Lyra explored the ruins further, discovering hidden archives and energy nodes that had remained untouched for centuries. Elias used his knowledge and intuition to decipher symbols and patterns, unlocking secrets that could help stabilize parts of the planet and improve life for its inhabitants. His understanding of the energy network surpassed what even the Zethurians had achieved, proving that human creativity and perseverance could rival advanced alien civilizations. Word of his feats spread among the Zethurian tribes. The forest that had once claimed countless lives now seemed to embrace him. Predators moved around him cautiously, sensing the cleverness and calm awareness that guided every action. The council, though cautious, began to recognize his achievements. Humans were no longer a curiosity or a liability. They were capable, resilient, and intelligent. One evening, as the twin moons rose over the forest, Elias and Lyra stood together on the edge of a cliff overlooking the valley. The soft glow of the energy stones illuminated the ruins below. The forest was alive with movement, yet calm in recognition of his presence. Elias felt a profound sense of accomplishment. He had faced impossible odds and emerged victorious, not through brute strength, but through intelligence, courage, and persistence. Lyra looked at him, her voice soft but firm. You have changed everything, she said. The council will no longer underestimate humans. You have shown that we are more than they believed. You have shown that courage, creativity, and determination can surpass expectations. Elias nodded, taking in the view. I survived because I had to, he said. I adapted because I had no choice. And I overcame because I believed in my ability to learn and endure. That is what humans do. The forest seemed to pulse in agreement. Every leaf, every stone, every glowing node bore witness to the triumph of a human who refused to be defined by weakness or assumption. The creatures of Zethuria, the council, and the tribes alike had seen the proof. Humans could survive, humans could adapt, and humans could inspire change. In the following weeks, Elias and Lyra worked together to stabilize parts of the valley, using his ingenuity and her knowledge. Together, they created a small sanctuary where humans and Zethurians could coexist safely, learning from each other. The council visited cautiously, witnessing firsthand the changes brought about by a single human who had refused to surrender to expectations. Elias had become more than a survivor. He was a symbol. His journey proved that humans were capable of incredible feats when they relied on intelligence, creativity, and courage. Lyra had believed in him from the start, and he had surpassed even her expectations. Humanity, once underestimated, had shown its true strength through one determined individual. As the sun rose over the forest, casting golden light across the ruins, Elias looked at Lyra and smiled. This is only the beginning, he said. Humans will continue to endure, adapt, and thrive. We have only just begun. Lyra nodded, her eyes shining with pride. And the world will see it, she said softly. All because one human refused to give up. The wind rustled through the trees, carrying a message of hope, courage, and perseverance. Elias had faced the impossible and emerged victorious. He had proven that humans, when underestimated, could achieve greatness beyond imagination. The council, the forest, and the stars themselves had witnessed it. Humanity was alive, resilient, and unstoppable. No one expected a human to survive, but the princess believed.